At the time of my recording this, our delegations are at negotiations for hostages. We don't know how they're proceeding. We don't know what the outcome will be, nor do we know how positive for us the outcome will be, if there is an outcome. We're in a moment, a period, a time of some degree of relaxation, of complacency. Things are kind of returned to normal, although the danger is as much as it's ever been before, and in a fraction of a second we can find ourselves in the midst of an even more ugly war than we've been dealing with up until now. And it's important to be aware of that as we move forward. I'm David Lapin, and this is the 12th in the series of Inspiration for Now from the Past, words of inspiration that my teacher Reb Chaim Shmulevitz gave to his students during the Yom Kippur War in 1973, at the real low times of that war. And he spoke in this particular section that we're learning at the moment about the importance of nosei ba'olim chaviro, of being part of it, of being physically close to what's happening, of being geographically close to what's happening, of being emotionally close to what's happening. He talked, for example, about the fact that when Hagar was being expelled from the home of Abraham, and she had her son Yishmael with him, who was dying of thirst and exhaustion and illness, and the Torah tells us that she put him down and sat a little bit away. And in fact, we're told that she moved further and further away as he became more and more ill, because she couldn't face being close to him. As much as a mother, you want to be close to the suffering child. She couldn't take the pain and suffering. And by removing herself geographically, just a little bit from it, a few meters away from him, that eased the intensity of the experience. And so Reb Chaim Shmulevitz would say, be careful that just by the fact that you are geographically removed, you're not on the battlefields, that doesn't allow you to lose sight and to lose feeling and heart of what's really going on around you. There are other cases for that. For example, he brings a beautiful statement, just a passing by statement that we often don't even notice in Mishlei, in the book of Proverbs, where the wisest of all men, King Solomon, says, Al sadeh ish atzel avarti, I walked past the field of a lazy man, va'al kerem adam chasei lev, and past the vineyard of a mindless individual. And I looked at that, ra'iti, I looked at it, ve'echazeh anochi ashit libi, I saw it, and I applied my mind to what I saw. And I saw, and then lakachti musar, it affected me, it inspired me into an insight, an understanding of what happens to an asset when one leaves it alone, what happens to an asset when one is mindless or careless about it. And the same applies to one's own life, to one's own body. Any asset that we have, that we don't invest in constantly, deteriorates. And Reb Chaim used to say, so what you see here is that even a man as wise as Shlomo, as wise as King Solomon, only really got that insight when he stood at the field and he looked at the reality of it. He didn't get it sitting in his study and looking at Sfarim, looking at books and at texts. He had to engage with life in order to be able to get the message of life that is so important. Rav Kook often talks about the importance of that type of musar, the quality of musar, of ethical self-development that comes from being attached to life, not disengaged from life. And even Moshe himself, when he was in Egypt and he was protected in the palace of the king and the Jewish people were suffering so terribly, Vayetze elecha vayar b'sivlotam, he went out to see their suffering. It says he went out, he didn't turn on his television, he didn't look on his phone or on his computer screen, or read the newspapers in order to understand their suffering. Vayetze elechav, he went out to them. And the Medrash says, he went and helped each one carry the burden, carry the load that as a slave they were carrying, that he could be part of that, known as nosei ba'olim chaviro, to share the burden with your friend, and how important that is. And so Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said to his yeshiva, don't think that you can leave Israel and go back to the States or wherever you come from and daven from there and pray from there in the same way as you would be praying here. Physical proximity changes the quality of prayer. This is one of the reasons why we need to do Bikur Cholim. We need to visit sick people. It doesn't help. Not it doesn't help. It certainly helps to pray for them from a distance. But the quality of prayer, the power of the prayer is not the same as when you're sitting at the person's bedside, nosei ba'olim chaviro, sharing the person's burden, seeing the person's hardship and suffering. And from that place of hardship, the prayer to develop, to mount up in your heart and overflow into something that you can articulate and say with passion and with meaning and with all your heart. Nothing can replace that quality of tefillah. At this time, those who've been able to stay in Israel, even though they have opportunities to go elsewhere, have an opportunity to create a power of tefillah, a power of prayer that we need. Let us not think that the danger is over. This is something that is going to take a while, and we need every bit of tefillah that we can get. And it's not just the quantity of tefillah, it's not just the quantity of prayer, it's the quality of prayer. And quality of prayer comes from being engaged with what's really happening, not from a distance. We're eternally indebted to our brothers and sisters around the world who do care about us, to many of the non-Jewish people around the world who care about us and are praying for us. Incredibly important. It gives us a sense of togetherness. It gives us a sense of other people caring. And there is a wellspring there is a mounting spring of davening, of prayer that is so important. But nothing is like the prayer of people who see it in front of them, who go to the funerals, who go to the shiva houses, who go to the hospitals and see the people who are suffering, who go to the army camps and see our brave heroes in the midst of their struggle and what they're doing. Nothing can replace the prayer that comes from that inner place from which we are. So even those of you who are overseas, try and put yourselves emotionally, use your imagination to put yourselves right in the heart of it while you're davening, while you're praying. Try for it not to be armchair davening. Try for it to be active, engaged davening, as if you're really here with us. Feel it, be with us. You do that, you know how to do that, and when you do it, we feel it. And the soldiers often say they feel the prayer of the Jewish people when it comes from that deep place of heart. So every one of you, each one of your prayers, children, adults, old people, Jewish people, Gentiles, each one of your prayers coming from a place of engagement and identification and nosei ba'ol, helping to bear the burden, that prayer is enormously powerful and carries such weight in the ultimate Yeshua, the salvation that Hashem will bring.